Hey, it's Dennis Chang. So I'm not going to hide it. This video is to promote the release of In the Style of Favino Laurier, which is now available on DC Music School. Favino Laurier is from the east of France, close to the German border, where there's a high concentration of gypsy musicians. Birelli Legren, Chavalo Schmidt, Dorado Schmidt, Amati Schmidt, Samson Schmidt, Hono Winterstein. A lot of the legendary players are from that region, and it's produced a lot of amazing players. And Favino is from the newest generation. He's barely 23 years old, and he's making a name for himself in the gypsy jazz scene. And so I just had to record him for DC Music School because he has this unique style, whereas a lot of players nowadays are going for kind of a modern sound. He's attracted to the old sound. But even though he's into the old style, he managed to come up with his own way of playing that is very contemporary, but it still retains that old nostalgic feeling. And he's just an absolutely incredible player. And so what I did today, that solo that you just heard me play, is it's an improvisation of mine based on a solo of his in the lessons. So if you want to check out what he did in the lessons, you'll have to buy the lessons. It's on the tune Minor Blues, Blues en Mineur. And basically, I transcribed the solo, so it's already transcribed on Sound Slice. And I played around with some of the ideas, and I tried to take certain elements, and then some of those elements I use them in my own improvisation, so you can check out the difference. So the overall topic of today's video would be the topic of improvisation, because there are a lot of people who have this criticism of gypsy jazz, saying that, oh, gypsy jazz, it's all just licks chained up together. There's no real improvisation. And I actually understand where such criticisms are coming from, because there is a certain truth to that, but it's more nuanced. But first, a little bit of advertisement. As you all know, if you follow my channel, this is pretty much my only source of income, the whole online thing. And if you can hit the like button, if you can subscribe, if you can share it, if you can tell your friends about these videos, all that stuff, it would mean a lot to me. And if you can even leave a comment, that would be super, super awesome. Thank you so much. You'll find all sorts of links in the description box if you want to support me financially, like buying things on DC Music School, such as the Favino lessons. You can buy music on Sound Slice, or not Sound Slice, but on Bandcamp. Or I have beginner gypsy jazz courses on Sound Slice, where I teach gypsy jazz from scratch. As long as you know how to play the guitar, I take everything from step one, and I show you the whole process from a historical perspective. So yeah, there we go. Let's get started. So that criticism that gypsy jazz players aren't really improvising, it's true that there is kind of a spectrum. At least contemporary gypsy jazz, within the past maybe 30-40 years or so, the language has become more codified. That's probably because of the internet, because of recordings and all that stuff. But there are some players that indeed have these long prepared phrases, such as this. But then there are players who know the same phrases, but they know how to manipulate them in the moment. And this is the case of players in the east of France, in my opinion. So people like Dorado Schmidt, Amati Schmidt, Samson Schmidt, Brady Winterstein, Favino Laurier, all on Sound Slice. No, wait, all on DC Music School, which is powered by Sound Slice. These are players who actually don't know too many licks. They have a few, but what they know how to do is to manipulate these patterns. They take these licks and they turn them into improvisation patterns. If you want, you can say that they turn them into like quote unquote scales or arpeggios, but they're not to be thought of as scales or arpeggios. The better word would be patterns. They have these musical patterns that they know how to manipulate in the moment. So I start off pretty much the same way as he did in the solo. I started with this G minor arpeggio. And that already teaches you a few things. That this shape is very useful. But then, because they have a lot of experience listening to music, to this kind of music rather, and because they grew up all together, they know all the variations as well. They know how to decorate the chords. They know that a G minor, you can do something like this. So with this arpeggio, you can already start to get creative. And that's what I mean when you're not thinking really in terms of arpeggios or scales, but in terms of musical ideas. Because you can choose to put this chromatic thing only in certain parts, on certain notes. Let's say here, or two of them. So you see, it's based on a G minor arpeggio, but I'm adding these little things, and there's no system to it. You just do it by feeling, by instinct. And then, of course, those players would also know things like this. So then you can come up with all based off of this shape. So what Favino Laurier did in the moment was not really a lick, but a manipulation of the pattern, and his pattern style, it started on the end of 2, a 1, 2, and 3, and. So you see, it's just a G minor arpeggio, and there's some rhythm to it. It starts on the end. So also pay attention to where you start the phrase, which notes are on the off beats, which ones are on the off beat. Is it on the beat on the 1, on the 2, on the 3, on the 4, on the end of 1? You'll notice all these rhythms that they've absorbed as a result of having listened to so much music. So, 1, 2, and 3, and here, Favino actually adds this note. So that's one pattern that you can play with over G minor. And what I would suggest you do is then try this in another song over minor swing. Instead of starting on the end of 2, you can start on the 1, and you can just have this pattern. You can, instead of doing this thing here, you do it here. And then you have a new phrase. By the way, this step, this thing that we're doing here, it's a step above the beginner level. If you're a complete beginner and this is too hard for you, I would suggest that you just learn the long licks as they are and don't try to really manipulate them. Until you get very familiar with them in terms of muscle memory, just stick to the simple stuff. Because I'm self-taught, it took me a while before I managed to learn how to manipulate these things in the moment. In the beginning, I just played long licks, basically. So it depends on you. You'll have to be your own best judge as to whether it's too hard or not. If it's way too hard, simplify things. If you feel that it's something that you can achieve, then this video is for you. I would say that this is like the first step into real improvisation beyond playing just licks. Okay, and then after his solo, he goes here to this position. So you have this G minor shape. And so basically, he has this chromatic thing. In his solo, he goes here, but I go here, just to make it more theoretically correct. And if you know your notes pretty well, then you can maybe realize you can continue it. And the chromatics is basically filling holes. So if I play the pattern for you real slowly, it's just a G minor 6 arpeggio. And from a guitar geometry point of view, you feel the holes wherever you want to feel the holes. And then you realize, oh, it's a G minor 6, so basically it's a G minor arpeggio and you're adding the 6th to it. What if I do it here? And now you have more material to work with. Right? And then you'll look at the transcription. By the way, this is transcribed on SoundSlice, so just check the description box, not the description, but the pinned comment, and you'll see the transcription. You'll see the chart says 4 bars of G minor going to C minor. But then what he does and what I do is this G7 arpeggio, diminished shape. I don't remember how he plays or how I played it, but it's a diminished shape going into C minor. That tells you that you can play some kind of G7 idea before going to C minor. This is a concept that I call harmonic direction, which I talk a lot about in my SoundSlice course. Practical harmony or practical jazz guitar harmony, something like that. Really good course. So you can insert a G7 chord before going to C minor to lead into the C minor. And then I play some sort of C minor shape. I don't remember what it was. I think it was something like that. And then you realize, cool, there's a C minor arpeggio with all these little decorations. It's basically the same decorations as I did for G minor, but now in C minor in this position. So it's based off of this chord. And then I did some kind of G minor going to this shape. Back to this shape again. And then I played the phrase that he played, but I changed a few things because I didn't copy the exact solo. I just took the idea and the basic message, so to speak. And the basic idea was this, which I thought was really cool. Over D7, it makes this sound. You don't have to, you can do it without the bend too. And then I don't remember what I did, but some like, it's based off of this, and it's filling the holes. And there's a typical pattern over D7 to give that kind of like flamenco or gypsy feel. But this was also used a lot by jazz musicians like Charlie Parker. And then he has this cool cadence phrase that I took. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a phrase, a cadence phrase that you could plug in at the end of a section when you resolve to the 1 chord. So that was the first chorus. So basically with only 3 ideas, I did 4 ideas, sorry. First idea is this arpeggio here with all the little manipulations that you can do. The second one is right here with all the same manipulations that you can do. And the third idea was over the C minor. And if you're being creative, you can tell yourself, hey, why don't I try this over G minor? So now you know 3 shapes for G minor. You know this shape here. You know the shape that goes horizontally like this, and you know this shape. And with that you can do a lot. And the same thing with C minor, you can then transpose everything to C minor. So that's the kind of creative thinking that you'll have to do to learn how to improvise for real. Okay, and then the fourth idea was over the D7. Oh, there was also the G7 idea, so 5. And you know that, hopefully, I don't know who's watching this, but if you don't know this, but a diminished chord, a diminished arpeggio, can be transposed 3 frets above, and you get the same chord. It's what we call a symmetrical shape. This is the same as this. It's the same as this. So you'll have 4 inversions. Okay? So you had 5 ideas. With 5 ideas, simple ideas even, you can do an entire solo over minor blues. So the second chorus, what did he do? I think, okay, it was this, something like this. Again, it's just filling the holes. We're going to the 6th. And then this is where I start to diverge from what he was doing. So I go up with the same arpeggio by using 6, G minor 6. Same idea here. And whereas Favino went down here with the diminished thing again, I think, I stayed up here using the diminished sound. Then I played a C minor shape here. It's that G minor shape we looked at here earlier. I transpose here. And then I forgot what I did. Oh, this shape. So, recycled material. And then I copied his D7 phrase note for note. And this is something, I don't think for him, this is a lick. This is something that he's manipulating in the moment. These chromatics, he's feeling the chromatics in his ears, in his body. Like he's calculating in the moment how to get from D7 to G minor. So it just turns out that when you do this, it's gonna land on beat 1. Try starting this on beat 2. And then you're gonna have to remove some chromatics if you want to land on beat 1. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. See? Because by starting on beat 2, I removed the chromatics here. I did this. Okay? So this is something that these players in the east of France are masters of. Like everything they play, it does sound like licks. It sounds very, very familiar, but they're manipulating things at the cellular level. And I've talked about this in previous videos. Again, this is not as easy as it seems. If this is still too hard for you, again, simplify. Just play licks. Just play licks until you get really, really familiar with them. Because a lot of this is about muscle memory and being able to react by instinct. You're not thinking about scales. You're not thinking about, well, you're not thinking about anything. You just know what the chords, where you're supposed to land, what the chords are. And in the moment, you just feel, oh, I should add this note here because I feel that if I add this note here, it's going to help me land where I need to land. It's this magical thing. It's kind of like when the speech that I'm giving to you, I don't have a script prepared with me. I'm just coming up with the words as they come to my head, and the words come out, right? When you speak your mother tongue, you're not thinking, all right, which words should I select and which grammar point should I use? No, you just speak, the words come out. You need to have this level of fluency to be able to do this. So it is not as easy as it appears to be. Okay, and then I added my own little cadence thing. I did this. This is a standard gypsy jazz cadence. But I like to change things. Instead of doing, I did. I thought just changing this note to this creates a nice sound. And that's the entire solo. So when you're studying a lot of typical gypsy jazz players, which is pretty much all the players on my DC Music School site, those who are quote-unquote real improvise are doing this thing that I just described to you. And that's one of the reasons why on DC Music School, as far as the Gypsy Jazz lessons are concerned, I have these artists play over many songs. What I want you to do, well, not what I want you to do, but my idea is for you to listen or to watch all these performances, like many times a day, every day, and by ear or by visual, just by watching, try to see where people repeat themselves. You'll see, like, I'm sure throughout the performances, Favino will constantly use these shapes, but he will manipulate them so that they're not necessarily always going to be exactly the same. And then you can try them out for yourself and hopefully develop the same kind of muscle memory that they have. Because these are people who spent their youth and still today practicing and playing all day, from morning to evening. Some of them didn't go to school, they quit school really early, and all they did was play guitar. So they have incredible muscle memory. And try to add some feeling to your playing, you know, like add some vibrato, some bends. Check out Favino Laurier's attack as well. You'll see that it's very staccato, it's very powerful, but it's also very nuanced. Like, it's not always the same dynamics. Some notes are louder than others. There's really nice contrast. Pay attention to that too. He's a very special player. So now, this summer, we've released 3 videos from 3 players in that region. Brady Winterstein, Punch Weiss, Favino Laurier. These are 3 cousins who grew up together, who grew up playing together, but and you're gonna hear like kind of a similar sound, but if you study each of them, you'll see that they do different things. So it's very cool to check out all the difference between 3 people who grew up together. It's kind of like when you go to a city, there's a shared culture, right? But of course, everyone is their own person. My hope is that if you like check out these different courses on DC Music School, you check out all these different players with their own unique identity, with this shared culture, and you take what you like from the different players, and then you come up with your own personality. There we go. That's what I want to say for today. So leave a comment. What would be really cool is if you could come up with your own solo over minor blues. And if you do, please post it and tag me or something. Let me know. I like to see what you come up with. And I've said it before, but really try to pay attention to the placements of the notes. Where you place the notes, which beats are accented, starting on the 1, starting on the end of 1, ending a phrase on 2, ending a phrase on 3, on the end of this. Like the balance between syncopation and on the beat, that is very important too. And if you check out, all these great players, Favino, Brady, all the great players, you'll notice that certain beats are emphasized more often than others. And I do have a course on that actually on SoundSlice. I think it's called Swing and Jazz Phrasing. A lot of this is based on a rhythm called the Charleston, which itself comes from, I think it's an Afro-Cuban rhythm called the tresillo, which is this rhythm: 1, 2, 3, 4, ba, 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 ba. I'll just do one cycle: ba, ba, ba. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. There we go. This is a very important rhythm, and it's one of the foundations of swing phrasing.